greetings from me and Darcy, the Easter kitty. Doesn't she look so excited to be here? Oh, it's wretched, isn't it? That's okay. This is week 4 of the Easter Joy Stitch Along, and oh, Darcy is all done. All right, say goodbye. All right. All right, we made Darcy do her thing, and she'll hate me for the rest of the day, but that's okay. She might still yell at me while I record this. So yeah, it's week 4. Technically, this should be the last week of the Easter Joy Stitch Along. It is, in fact, the last week of stitching. Eggs and flowers this week. And I was thinking, in an ideal world, I would be like this close to being finished so that I could take the last stitches while recording this. And unfortunately, that is not going to happen. But that's okay, because you probably, if you're watching this, you probably aren't finished yet either, unless you are ahead of me, which I know at least one person who is. Yeah, so I think I might try and squeeze in one extra video where I show this all finished and show you what I'm going to make mine into. I'm not going to just put mine in a hoop, although it is circular and would fit in a hoop really well. I have another plan for it, so I'm going to work on that, I think. But yeah, so this week is eggs and flowers, and the way that I stitched mine, well, hold on, let me show you where I am with mine. There's the whole thing right there. And I started by stitching my eggs. They're all done except for this little yellow egg down at the bottom that I apparently ran out of yellow thread and then didn't want to start another one just to finish off the egg. So I will be finishing that when I get over there to fill in the centers of my flowers. So I stitched all of the eggs. Then I stitched the outsides of the large flowers. So you can see some of those are still empty over here. Then I stitched the outside of the small flowers. Those are all still empty over here as well. And then now I'm going in and I'm doing all of the yellow insides of the flowers so that I could move around and not, basically with the large flowers, I started and ended on each of those flowers. With the blue, I jumped, and I will show you the back of my cross stitch. I love to keep things as tidy as possible. I would prefer not to jump around between sections, but sometimes if you're stitching tiny flowers and it's only 4 little stitches, I don't think it makes sense to end off and start up again, right? That's tricky to do without it just being a mess. Anyway, so here's the back of my stitching. And you can see where I jumped between sections, and the yellow now is doing the same thing. And I'm gonna just trust that it's gonna be fine. For what I'm doing, I'll end up putting a layer of white behind this, I think. So it will fill in all of especially the little holes from the Aida. So we'll see how that goes. It is what it is at this point, but here we are. All right, so yeah, I'm gonna stitch the, keep going with these flowers. You might have seen when I showed the back of that as I jump, I do sometimes, like, I'll weave in behind other stitches, like wangle behind them, behind previously stitched things, so that there's a little less of a jump that way. It also secures the thread somewhat. So I do that when I can. And then I try to jump at a more of an angle, because it doesn't cross over as many of the gaps between the stitches or the weave of the fabric. So try to minimize the jumps and the thread showing. So kind of like right there on the edge of jumping and not jumping, I guess. Skipping over things, etc. I don't know. It might be just a little mind game that I play with myself, but hey, we do the things that work for us. So yeah, I'm about probably halfway done with filling in the centers of these. Then I still have to do the faces on the eggs. That's the last thing. So, oh, and I forgot to fill in the nose on my chocolate bunny so far. I know it's unfilled in, empty, not stitched. I just have to pull out some light pink to do that. So technically, I guess last week's stitching also not finished. That's okay. All right, getting over here. I do go a little back and forth from front to back when I'm doing this. Darcy the Easter Kitty has left me some of herself in my stitching. Lovely. It's like hiding an egg for me, but instead it's just cat hair. All right, here we go. One more of these in this zone. I think I might have enough to keep going. I try to go as far as I can, you know, without it making me super frustrated with the amount of thread that I have left. Also, I find that when I'm filling things into the middle of a section, sometimes doing the sewing method is a little harder for me because I'm more worried that I will disrupt a stitch. So for these kinds of things, I'm often going up and down through the fabric as you do not with the stabbing method. All right. So I'm going to take a sip of coffee here, and then I'm going to tell you about my first real cross stitch project, which was also the first thing I ever designed for cross stitch, and the first cross stitch project that I didn't finish. Checked all the boxes. I was about 10 or 12 years old. And I decided that I was going to try my hand at cross stitch. I had stitched on some like really, really old stitching cards, but that's really a different process, and they were, you know, stamped, and I was just following those. So I decided I was going to create my own pattern to make a stitched, like a little hand towel. It was on one of the towels that has a strip of Aida cloth sewn into it so you can cross stitch on it. So I had one of those, and I decided to design and cross stitch Easter eggs to go on it. Just like, you know, a little bit, probably a similar shape to the eggs in this pattern, but I think that they were probably a little bit bigger, and I decided that I was going to make them patterned, like, you know, with stripes, zigzags, polka dots, etc., but like in sections, like bands across the egg. And eggs, I think I was aiming for 3, but it might have been 5. And I don't remember if I ever made, like, if I put it down on paper to follow, or if I just was sort of winging it, which would be very me. And I do recall feeling like this point where I didn't think I could come up with pattern designs to go on it anymore. I sort of was like, oh, I don't know, have any more good ideas anymore, which I definitely have had since then with similar types of things where I'm like trying to put in, you know, patterns is really the word, which gets confusing because I'm designing a pattern, but sometimes that's just the thing that throws me off a little bit. So I felt that way, and also I was so slow, and I am positive that I never finished it. I have no idea what happened to it. I remember the hoop that I used for it, and I'm pretty sure I still have that hoop. It was an elongated wooden hoop that I have used for things. It was in an old sewing basket. My mom still has the old sewing basket. The towel's not in there anymore. It used to be in there for like a really long time, and then it just went away, and I wish I had it so much. But that's the tale of the very first thing that I designed, stitched, and didn't finish. So the adventure continues. But that leads me to say that with these eggs, you absolutely could change the way that the eggs look. They are all in solid colors. As I mentioned in the last video, I think, when we dye Easter eggs in my family, they're usually just solid colors in these bright colors. So this is what Easter eggs look like to me. But you could change and stitch patterns into them. Or if you've already stitched them solid like this, you could add in patterns by using backstitch and French knots to make stripes, zigzags, polka dots, etc. And you could just add that in afterwards, and it's a really easy way to decorate your eggs. You know, the faces on these use backstitch and French knots, so you're already kind of in that groove. You know, maybe it would actually be fun to do them to stitch them the designs in white, kind of like using a white crayon on your eggs before you dye them. That would be kind of cute, right? But of course you can stitch them just as it is. Just throwing that out there as a, like, if you wanted to make yours custom, it's an easy way to do that. So, yeah, I think that it's just, I mean, I enjoy the stitching process all around, but I also like sometimes making little changes to things, and that's an easy change that, hey, if you really don't like the way it looks, you could pull it out afterwards, just carefully, you know, don't disrupt your other stitches if you are back stitching over them especially. So now I'm going to run out of thread, which is probably just as well, because here I am filling in this flower, and I forgot to get in here and do the bottom of my yellow egg again. It's okay. I'm going to finish off this thread, then I'm going to stitch the end of that egg, and I'll still be able to come back and then do the flower. It's all going to work out. I have confidence in this haphazard plan. Yeah. Listen, Darcy's just glad that I'm not trying to get her to rejoin the video. All right, I'm gonna have to start a new thread, so I'm gonna pause here, have a little more coffee. Thank you for watching, and I hesitate to say that there's gonna be another video in the stitch along, but I feel like there needs to be, right? You want to see how this is finished. If you want to see how this is finished, let me know. Otherwise, goodbye. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, do let me know. Should we do one more video? If I have enough coffee, I can do it. I think it needs to happen. I'll make it happen. All right. One more Easter Joy stitch along. And then I'll have to start another project. All right. I'll see you next time. It's going to be the last time. This is the last time. All right, how does she look? Okay, just calm down.